You've probably been collecting digital resources over the years. If so, it's probably a good idea to put them all in one place where you can easily access them. This lesson will guide a school system through the process of creating a digital learning library to store all of their digital resources. Here is an overview of the different components of creating a digital learning library that you will need to plan out. Hosting is just where are you going to host it. Classifying is making sure that you've got all of the different digital resources classified into one of the 10 categories from before. You want to have a plan for growth. You want to have some general principles by which you organize the whole thing. For the goal of the website, it's important to know who your users are going to be and keep that in mind. And then design. For hosting, you're going to need to purchase both a domain name and a hosting service. Make sure to not use a domain name that's already taken. Most DNS services will allow you to check before buying. You'll also need some kind of content management system, unless you're going to hire programmers to make the website themselves. You're going to want to think about how to classify your resources, mostly in terms of how is the user going to be looking for them. Are they going to be searching for a particular standard or for a particular subject? You're going to want to think about what the hierarchy will be for as far as how they navigate the website. One way you might do it is by separating things into elementary, middle, and high, and then by subject and grade level. And then inside the grade level, you'd have all the miscellaneous stuff like the unit maps and the rubrics. You might also want to do online data collection and keep track of your continuing education units. It's extremely important to begin with growth in mind. Imagine if you were using a Google document to store all of your digital resources. As you found new resources, you might just plop them down at the bottom of the Google Doc, and so it would grow to be hundreds of pages long. And it would be a real hassle if you ever went through and tried to organize it. Now, you want to start with the organization in mind. Here are some general principles to keep in mind as you're designing your project. First, definitely take your regular off-site backups. If you have a problem that can be solved with this solution, and yet you're not using this solution, you've made a large mistake. Try to use a consistent naming schema. It's easier for people to find things or understand what it is they're reading if, in general, things happen to be named in a logical fashion. Try to reduce the number of drilled down links in your project. For instance, if you've got 428 standards, don't have one link for each standard. Instead, link them to the top level standards website where they can then search for the standard on their own. That way, if the state changes their website, you only have to change one link instead of 428. Your website should not be a big filing cabinet full of 20th century resources. That's the Google Doc strategy. Instead, make sure that your documents are organized and that they will stay organized as your website grows. Think about how the different stakeholders are going to interact with your website. The users and the content creators. It's no good to make a website that's very good for the users if the content creators can't manage their stuff, because then your website won't have any content. And if it can't be administrated, then your website just won't work. Make sure to keep the goal of the website in mind at all times. If your goal is to improve the digital competencies of all your staff, then think about what you're doing in terms of that. If you're not actually furthering that goal, you might be making a mistake. Also, again, make sure that your website will be able to grow without becoming too disorganized. Every kind of stakeholder needs to have a good experience for what they are using the website for. Try to have your files be organized in the same manner that your website is organized. That way, when you're adding new content, it won't be a nightmare trying to figure out where you're supposed to put it. Now, having learned all of this, you may not be able to create your digital learning library yourself, but you'll have a much better idea of what you need, and this should make it easier to hire somebody to help you.